This is going to be the gush fest of two old friends hanging out. Guys, it's Eagles. It's Cowboys. It's final preview and prediction, and who should be and who will be the starting quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday as we try to lock up the NFC East officially, guys. Trending in the AM on the ST2 Sports Network. We're live in 30 seconds.
Pop, 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 julep. Pop, 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 julep. Pop, 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 julep. Pop, 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 woo!
And a very good morning, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM right here on the STT Sports Network, setting the trends for what sports talk should be in Philadelphia. Guys, we got a jam-packed show, but it starts right now with you hitting that like button and subscribe button as we are on the march to 500 subscribers, guys. So please do me that favor. Smash that like, smash that subscribe, and share it out to everyone you know as we are going to get set and get the final preview and prediction of this week's Eagles-Cowboys game. And I am your host, as always, Phil Stiefel. But joining me today, I feels like for the first time in a decade here, my main man, the pride of Villanova, one of the finest upstanding Italian-Americans in this country, Marc Moscatelli is back in the co-host chair. Good morning, Marc, and Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas, happy holiday, happy Kwanzaa, happy Boxing Day, and whatever Festivus or other holiday you celebrate. Phil, thank you for having me on. I don't get on nearly as much as I would like, and let's make it a great show today, Phil.
Yeah, and as Judd, happy Friday to you, Judd. It is the last show of 2024 because I will be leaving on a cruise on Sunday, so this is it. The next time you see me live on the air, it'll be 2025 and a whole new shebang of stuff going on. So, guys, this is the last chance to have your opinions heard, to have your voices heard, so get in the comments, tell one, tell all. Marc, we got a very important Eagles game this week, and I say it's very important. Borderline must win because the Eagles do need to get the win this weekend so that next weekend's game is a meaningless football game against the New York Giants so that they can rest Saquon Barkley, so that they can rest A.J. Brown, Jalen Carter, whoever else that they choose to rest next week. But obviously the big deal is Jalen Hurts. Will he play or won't he play? He did not practice yesterday. He wasn't even out on the field in stretch lineup or anything like that, which pretty much signals Jalen Hurts will not play on Sunday. Kenny Pickett was the number one quarterback in practice yesterday. He had a little extra padding around his flak jacket. And just so everybody knows, Kenny Pickett said yesterday after practice, he always wears a flak jacket. He's always done it. So that's not nothing new. Don't be concerned about that. But, Marc, there's this huge group of Eagles fans, the McKeisters, as I call them, that there are so many people out there that want the Eagles in like I said, a very critical game, want Tanner McKee to start on Sunday. So let me ask you this first and foremost. How your confidence level is with Kenny Pickett having to win a game of importance against the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday?
Oh, extremely high.
I like that answer.
I mean, you're listen, here's what you got. You got Kenny Pickett versus Tanner McKee. And listen, there's always that contingent that no matter what wants to root for the backup quarterback. And if the backup quarterback's not very good, they're going to root for the third stringer in Tanner McKee. And honestly, Tanner had very limited reps in preseason. I mean, he did play, but that was like almost 20 weeks ago, and it was preseason. He doesn't get first team reps in practice. He
doesn't get second team reps in practice.
He doesn't get second team reps. He gets scout team reps for most of the practice. Kenny Pickett, whether you like it or not, was a starting quarterback for Pittsburgh for what, 2 years?
He was 14-10 as a starter in Pittsburgh. Kenny Pickett.
Not terrible, considering how terrible he is. Listen, he came in that game against Washington cold. Again, he didn't have any first-team reps anyway. Hurts plays. I think here he's probably a lot more prepared. knows what the scripted plays are going to be. He knows what to do. I kind of liked what he was doing to an extent last week, where he was sticking with AJ Brown. Like, he knew where his bread was buttered, and AJ was there for him. And I think you'll probably see a lot of that again this week. But I think AJ's on the injured list again with his knees. So
yeah, I mean, that's why this week's game is so important, so you can get AJ Brown healthy and whatnot. Right now, I got a poll on Twitter, and it's like 17 hours old. You know, who should start? Kenny Pickett, Tanner McKee, or new practice squatter Ian Book? And right now, we are at 41-55. Kenny Pickett's got 41 of the almost 200 votes to 54% for Tanner McKee. And I'm starting to question myself, Mark, because everybody keeps telling me Tanner McKee is this great quarterback. He looked so great in the preseason. Here were his preseason numbers this year, okay? He was 34 of 56, which is just barely over 60%. He threw for 290 yards, just over 5 yards per attempt. He threw 0 touchdowns and 56 passes and an interception. Is that what good quarterback play is? Because, like, I don't know. He has not even taken like a kneel down snap in the NFL. So I don't understand where go out there and win this week, and then let him get some practice next week. You know,
he'll play against the Giants probably when they beat the Cowboys. And listen, you're talking about like rosters who's hurt. Dallas has Cooper Rush as their head as the quarterback. CeeDee Lamb, they just shut him down.
Yep, he's done.
This team. I know Micah Parsons came out and said we're going to play spoilers, yada yada yada. But he wants to be an Eagle so bad. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he threw the game. I think this is like a non-issue. I think they probably walk all over Dallas on Sunday. And it's just the minute I think the Eagles get up early, I think the Cowboys will just pack it in because it's the next to last game of the season. They got nothing to play for. They're shutting players down. They've been underwhelming all season. There's already floating word out that Mike McCarthy is coming back. I don't know why. It's Moscatelli, not Missinelli, but okay. I just think
I didn't even recognize that he typed up Missinelli there. Like I didn't even notice that.
I just think like Dallas is just checked out. And listen, they're going to feed Barkley, and they're going to get up to a big lead. Hopefully, they got like a 28-point lead at halftime, so then you could start resting guys in the middle of the third quarter.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what their goal should be. Whether or not that happens, who knows? I wasn't overly surprised Washington beat them last week. I think Washington is a little bit of an up-and-comer, and they're right on the cusp of making the playoffs. I think if the Eagles face them in a playoff, they're going to obliterate them, especially if they're all my man. That word is a little offensive, but we'll let it slide, okay?
I only put it up for you, okay? Because I knew what you'd say. Come on, you're part of the Trending in the AM morning show right now. You got to expect some pretty offensive things to be said. Just wait. That's 1/10 of what offensive stuff will be said.
I can't
but
wait.
I want to bring up Deebs here, man, saying that Kenny Pickett looked bad in the preseason. Sure, he didn't look great. Nobody looked great in the preseason. No one does look great. And everybody's freaking out about Kenny Pickett on Sunday. He was, 14 of 24. He had the pick. He had the touchdown. Kenny Pickett doesn't even practice with the ones. You know what I mean? Till this week. There was no rhythm or rhyme with, A.J. Brown, knocking rust off in the middle of an important game like last week. I don't think Washington looked that great last week. I don't think Washington is that special of a team yet. They're on the up, like you said. But, do we expect Kenny Pickett to be perfect in his first throw since the preseason as well? I think people are overreacting to how bad Pickett is and overhyping Tanner McKee far too much.
Kenny Pickett is a failed. Was he first? He was
a first. I think he was like 21st or 22nd in the first round.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's a failed first round pick. He is a backup quarterback. He has been in garbage time, but he did start 24 games for the Steelers, and he had a winning record. So he has a little bit of experience and a pedigree that, yes, he should perform. But here's the deal. This team, the Eagles, they see that their guy is down, Hurts is down. They need to rally around the backup quarterback. And, yes, he threw a really, really awful interception. But Devontae Smith dropped the ball right in his hands that would have ended the game. And
if Devontae Smith catches that and we win that game, are we having the same McKee versus Pickett argument this week?
Not at all.
Exactly.
Not at all, because you're talking about how clutch their wide receivers were with Hurts being down. But Devontae typically doesn't drop that ball, and he owned up to it. And honestly, if you want to be real, that's what really lost the game for them.
Absolutely.
So the veteran team needs to rally around Kenny Pickett. They don't need to get worried and say, oh my God, I need to lean on him to win. No, you have to help your teammate out. And
Kellen Moore, helping out your teammates. I put some of the blame last week on Kellen Moore because Kellen Moore didn't have the quick, instant ability to adjust his game plan to what Kenny Pickett does versus what Jalen Hurts does. Obviously, Jalen Hurts is way up here. Kenny Pickett is way down here in overall skill set, but also they're this far apart in what they do well. Kellen Moore just didn't adjust. Kellen Moore's had a full week now to game plan. I've got Kenny Pickett now. I've got to do Y instead of X when I'm calling plays. So you've also got that aspect of it there as well that, Kenny Pickett's got a full week of practice. Well, Kellen Moore's got a full week to prepare for Kenny Pickett as his starting quarterback.
Oh, absolutely. He's more prepared. And the only thing that he changed his game plan with is there was no tush push. But here's the thing.
And that does affect things,
But here's the deal with that. And that's why I'm like, well, listen, this play works, and it's not just because it hurts. It's the offensive line getting low and under and cup blocking the defensive line, creating space for whoever's behind center. Are you telling me you couldn't put Kenny Gainwell behind center? Are you telling me you couldn't put Saquon behind center? Saquon can squat more than Hurts can. Yeah. But and that's like thinking outside the box. Is the play only set for Hurts? I mean, I know that there was at least one or two plays against Washington. They probably could have ran that play to extend drives, but they didn't. To your point, yes, Kellen Moore needs to write up plays that fit the schemes and fit the players that are on the field. And, hopefully with a week, he was able to do that.
Hopefully with a week worth of practice. I mean, what did Kellen Moore do so wrong on Sunday last week was, he stuck to Saquon Barkley. Washington was putting 9 in the box, and he was still running Saquon Barkley right into those 9-man boxes. This week with Kenny Pickett having a full week of practice, maybe the Dallas defense, which isn't that good. I don't know if people realize how bad Dallas defense is this year, but a 27th ranked defense now in football. They're atrocious and all. You can pass on them, you can run on them, you could do literally everything on this Dallas defense, whereas Washington has a much better defense. And he'll have time to game plan some play actions. Put Kenny Pickett under center versus in RPO and run option type, formations and stuff like that. They'll have the ability to do these kind of things a little bit more.
I don't. Is Pickett like a mobile quarterback at all? I'm trying to remember.
He's mobile, but he's not a running quarterback like Jalen Hurts. He's more mobile in the sense where he can slide around the pocket. He can get out to the outside and extend a play, but you're not designing runs for Kenny Pickett, that's half the playbook right there.
Well, and that's the thing. They rely heavily on Hurts RPOs and tucking the ball in and running up the middle and stuff like that. Which
this is a great point here from Duck. Kenny Pickett is a lot more like Justin Herbert than Jalen Hurts. You know what I mean? He's not at the pedigree of Justin Herbert because Kenny Pickett's better than Justin Herbert.
He's more of a pocket passer, more of a
pocket passer that knows how to move. That's athletic enough to move. So Kellen Moore does have experience with that style quarterback. He just had an entire game plan around Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, and you mentioned something last week about having 8 and 9 in the box against Barkley, and Barkley didn't have his best game on the yards per carry. And, I was looking at it. I'm like, dude, they're not going to let him run. Just hit somebody over the middle or something like that. But that's where you really would have needed Dallas Goedert to be an outlet, and he wasn't there. And I like Calcaterra, Raekwon. That's another Italian-American guy there. I guess they don't trust him as much. I know he's
awful in the run blocking. And you know what? Let's say
pass blocking too. I know, like he was real. They kept him in, but he couldn't block anybody. So
I mean, maybe some of those 9-man boxes that we tried to run on, if Calcaterra could actually block, maybe Saquon would have been stopped behind the line of scrimmage every time. This is actually better than a Justin Herbert comparison. Kenny Pickett is probably on the level of Danny Dimes. Daniel Jones, who, is terrible. And there were people that wanted him to be brought in once he was cut to Philly, once Jalen Hurts went down. Kenny Pickett is basically like Danny Dimes in the mobile aspect. We've seen Daniel Jones break off big runs against the Eagles, so, there's that comparison right there. Pickett have that slick? I don't even.
So he would run and he would fake slide, and then he would stand up. And he'd run for touchdowns. And I think they either changed the rules or did something about that. Yeah. Shane Falco is better than Kenny Pickett.
It cost me a ton of money in the Sugar Bowl, but you know what? At least he had some heart, okay? At least he had some heart, which is what this Eagles team has. And that's why I kind of feel like this Eagles team, I don't think this is a question of whether the Eagles can or can't win this week. I think the Eagles will win because I think they do understand the importance of winning this week so that everybody can get that breather. We had, week 5. It's been so long since we've had a week off, as this Eagles team. They need a bye week, and they're not getting the 1 seat. So next week can be that proverbial bye week for Saquon Barkley, for A.J. Brown. Jalen Carter's playing 98% of the snaps on defense every week. He could use a week off. This team has the heart and the emotion to know the importance of today or on Sunday, and Dallas is checked out. Once they shut CeeDee Lamb down, this team is checked out, that they're ready for the offseason, they're ready for tea times, they're ready for Cancun, they're ready for whatever else they're going to do. The Eagles aren't going to fall flat this week. They know the importance of getting this job done.
No, I agree. I think they get a I think they get out to an early lead. I think they get out to a big lead. I think you start seeing the starters being pulled late third quarter. And I'm looking at like a 31-6 win against Dallas.
I'll save that for later.
I just don't see anything happening, man. I just don't. There's no energy on either side, really. Whatever energy might be out there for the Eagles is contained, and they're not letting it out, so to speak. But the other thing too is, and I believe in this stuff is good juju. They're wearing their Kelly Greens against the Dallas Cowboys. I think that is.
My opinion on Kelly Green, right?
I know you don't like it, but it's going to look great.
But I got this thing with Kelly Green this week. Like Kelly Green weeks the last couple of years have been all hype and all like in your face because of the Jalen Hurts situation and the Cowboys being washed. Like the Kelly Green hype is kind of like
I don't even like
I didn't even know it was Kelly Green until 2 days ago.
Who did they wear the Kelly Greens with?
I don't even remember. It was early in the season. I don't even remember who they wore it against. Was it Jacksonville?
Was it Jacksonville?
It was when Saquon did the backwards hurdle. Which game was the backwards hurdle? I want to say it was Jacksonville.
That was Jacksonville.
Yeah, that's when they had the Kelly Green. But like the hype for the Kelly Green is even worn off because the game is like, I would be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked if even Micah Parsons eventually gets shut down. Like either before the game or halfway through the game, just because why risk someone like Micah Parsons getting hurt in the game? So they changed the rule in the Pickett slide. I don't think he realized how bad that ripple effect would be. Grant is the worst blocking tight end. I'm shocked they did not use Blasingame, Anthony, in the last game. He only had 1 snap. I know he's only been here a couple of weeks, but he's been called up from the practice squad and not used at all. The Ben Van Sumeren thing, I think started to kind of move us back to old school fullback play. But Blasingame hasn't been used, and he's got experience in the fullback. Maybe they use him this week. Maybe. Along comes Calcaterra with the olive oil blocking, and I can't even say the rest of that comment right there. Kenny needs a win to get another contract. Kenny Pickett is still under contract for the Eagles next year. So all these people talking about Kenny Pickett or Tanner McKee, Kenny Pickett is the backup next year for the Philadelphia Eagles as well, unless they decide to trade him in the offseason. Barkley, we're going to talk about Saquon Barkley. I want to get Mark's opinions on Saquon Barkley here in a few minutes. We got like 3-4 people saying Jacksonville here. It was the Jacksonville game for the Kelly Green. All right, we gained one more subscriber. We're up to 328. The march to 500 is on. Please, let's go. Like, subscribe, share. Need that 500 number. I wanted it by the end of the year. It's not going to happen, but we're going to try. I just don't get the Pickett hate from people. Like he's the reason. He is the least of the reasons why we lost. The goal of a backup quarterback is when he comes in the middle of the game is to keep the team in the game. And that's what he did. He wasn't perfect. He wasn't bad. There's a lot of reasons we lost last week. And, we talk about the emotion. I want to get your thoughts on this, Mark. The emotions this team has and how they wear their emotions on their sleeve like their coach. And we'll talk about Zach Ertz versus Nick Sirianni in a few minutes because I know one person in the chat hates Nick Sirianni. But this team does wear, like I always say, like you take on the personality of your coach, your leader, your manager in your job. And people like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Jalen Hurts, or Jalen Carter, they need to learn to taper it down a little bit at certain times. Similar to Joel Embiid the other night in the Sixers game. They got to learn to taper their emotions down. You know what I mean? And that was a big part of the reason why we lost, losing Chauncey Gardner-Johnson on Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
Which it was wrong that he was ejected. Just let me throw that out there. But,
whether Nick is your head coach or not, I do think Jalen Carter and Gardner-Johnson were going to be what they are. I mean, he's probably not Carter. Gardner-Johnson is a really big reason why they lost that game. You lose your cool and you get your second foul. And listen, you got to look yourself in the mirror. And maybe he didn't mouth off that much, or maybe he could say, well, I really didn't deserve that flag. You have a reputation in the league with the officials, with your teammates, with your opponents, that you're an ass. I mean, he really does.
Basically. I
mean, he's been on 3 teams already.
4 teams because the Eagles twice in the last 4 years. Atlanta, Philly, Detroit, Philly.
So, that's telling you, like, people he has immense talent, but the attitude doesn't match the talent. I mean, when you're winning, you could stomach it. When you're not, see you later, dude.
Hell, even his contract this year that he signed to come back to Philly, there's an out technically at the end of this year. If the Eagles decide to move on from him, they could with very minimal dead cap hit next offseason. They could even he's such a problem that they wrote a 3-year contract with a 1-year out. I mean, that sums it up right there.
Yeah, so you have a reputation. If you're going to mouth off, you're not going to get the benefit of the doubt. And he didn't on Sunday, and it was a big reason why they did not win that game because they're secondary now that a guy that had a pick in the game is not in the game anymore. So it's
I don't think we do know what he said. Like there is video evidence of the Zach Ertz versus Nick Sirianni, rumble in the Bronx, you know what I mean? But there is still not one video clip. They got 10,000 cameras on that field, and there's not one video clip of even him arguing with somebody, let alone the audio. Like, I still can't comprehend how there's no proof of this. Like, I don't understand it. It's kind of crazy that there's not even a camera angle from a distance or a fan's camera, of what happened here. And that bothers me to an extent. I'm not saying it's a conspiracy or anything like that, but I'm just saying, like, it's kind of crazy that there's no proof of this.
Yeah, but I saw some video on the Zach Ertz thing too. Like, what exactly did I see? I mean,
yeah, all right, let's dive into the Zach Ertz. So Jeff McClain on his, I don't listen to it, so I gotta read it off of here. His Uncovering the Birds podcast dropped a bomb yesterday that everybody jumped. Everybody hates Jeff McClain, but when he dropped something like this, everybody jumped all over it and was, using it to stoke the fire and stir the pot a little bit. That after the game, somebody might have high-fived somebody too hard, and our coach may have said something else to Zach Ertz, and that Big Dom had to step in and separate a fight from fight, breaking out between the two. But then the video dropped like 3 hours later after everyone lost their cool over this and showed it was really nothing. It was just a high five. Nick Sirianni turned his head, said something to Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz went and said something to him, and Big Dom didn't have to separate him. He just escorted him off to the locker room. I mean, much to do about nothing. But, Nick Sirianni, we complain that Jalen Hurts doesn't show enough emotion. We complain that Nick Sirianni shows too much emotion. Like, I kind of feel like they're the yin and the yang. You want one really emotional person leader and one very calm and collected person leader on your team. And that's just what we've got here with Hurts and Sirianni.
I think, it's funny you said that. I think both are to the extremes to each side. Like,
right.
Listen, from a Hurts perspective, and something came out where somebody who went to the house, Big Dom and
Brandon Graham, that was refuted by all parties involved.
Yeah. But like, where did that come from? And listen, I like Jalen Hurts a lot, but part of being a quarterback is you do have to be a leader in the locker room. And that's what Carson Wentz's downfall was. Like, he was immensely talented on the field, but he was a dumbass in the locker room. And like, I think Hurts is just like a very cerebral, very, very different guy. He's different, and it's not in his personality. But listen, if you want to be a leader of men on a football team, you do have to exude some leadership within the locker room and make time available for your coworkers, your teammates. So I'm sure there's something happened, maybe, but not to that extent. And then from a Nick perspective, I like Nick. His style works, and they're constantly trying to tear that man down because he doesn't fit as a mold that they think an NFL head coach should fit. Now, if they were losing every week, and if they were out of the playoff picture and stuff like that, I think that act wears extremely thin, and boom, he's gone.
Hence why you say it wears thin. Last year it was wearing thin when we were dropping games left and right, San Francisco and onward at the end of the season. This year we're winning. It's not a big deal.
But here's the other thing too. Like who has come out and said that he's got I'm not playing for him, or he's not my guy. There is no crack in that foundation that I believe from the team that that he shouldn't be head coach. And I think that plus the fact that he stays the course and keeps winning. Listen.
Duck is the number one hater of Nick Sirianni.
At the end of the day, man,
Duck is the most level-headed listener of this show on a daily basis, except for when it comes to talking about Nick Sirianni.
We all have different leadership styles, and we find what. Listen, Phil, you run your own business. I run a pretty big department at a company. I have a certain leadership style that you would probably call me a clown as well, but it makes my people feel good. And I'm fiercely protective of my people, and I take the bullets for them, which is what they probably don't see, with Nick.
But you know what you probably do? You probably change every year or two as you have new employees cycle through. Sometimes you've got to adjust your style of managing. I'm sure if Nick Sirianni, if different styles of players were here, he would have to adjust, his style of managing this team as well.
I like relating sports to like what we do for a living, whether you run a small business, you work in a privately owned business or publicly traded. Correct, Philly Irish.
Drew's spot on with this.
You don't buffoon your way into a 46-20 record with now 4 straight playoff appearances and
Super Bowl appearance.
You were a holding penalty away of winning a Super Bowl in your second year. Like you don't buffoon your way into that. I'm sorry, and that's where a lot of people fail to realize that. And I was very skeptical at the beginning of the season because I wasn't sure between the coordinators and the roster and would Nick be able to bring it all together. But he has, and he found his way. And again, to your point, Phil, this is a different team than it was last year.
Absolutely.
He's probably adjusted. But again, going back to like, how do you manage a team of people? How do you manage your department? How do you manage your company? Is you support your people, you make them feel good. I actually am hiring. I do have
everybody's hiring right now.
I just closed my position. I might have a second open, but I'm serious. Like you protect your people, you make them feel good about working here, you pay them fairly, and you support the ones that you need to support, and you got to motivate the ones that are stuck in quicksand. I think Nick does a really, really, really good job about that. Mm-hmm. And leaning on this, well, he needs to be an offensive coordinator and call all the plays. No, he doesn't. Right. There are a number of coaches out there, and a lot of them are shifting toward the CEO approach. John Harbaugh has done it his entire professional career. Barry Switzer had a pedigree coming out of college, though.
Yeah, he did.
So
I want to add something to the equation because right here on the STT Sports Network, guys, make sure you hit that subscribe button and like button and share button. I got the boys from Philly Press Box Radio. They do a show every Wednesday night. Because of Christmas, they did it last night, and they had right here on the channel. They had Ray Didinger on the show. Okay, and he was supposed to give like a 15-minute little interview. He ended up being on the show for over 30 minutes last night. And he brought up a time where he got to sit down and just hang out with Terry Bradshaw. Okay, and most people don't think Terry Bradshaw when you're talking about elite quarterbacks, right? But he said Ray Didinger and Terry Bradshaw were sitting there chit-chatting one day, just small talking, not interview. And Bradshaw talked about when did it become more than just wins. And he didn't care about stats or where his pedigree ranks among other quarterbacks. He cared about one thing, winning games. And as long as your team scored more points than the other team, pretty basic, you win games. So whenever I hear Ray Didinger say something, I know I'm not a fool for feeling that way. And as Drew said, 46-20, you don't luck into 46-20. Like that's just putting winning above everything else. And I think it's very important that people realize that, right?
No, first of all, back up. Terry Bradshaw is an elite quarterback, and he was
4-0 in the Super Bowl, right?
And
4-0, 5-0, whatever it was.
He was beyond his years. Like he was
right.
He was playing football like Dan Marino and Joe Montana were in the 80s, but in the mid 70s, and took it to 4 Super Bowl wins. He didn't have the rules to support him that the quarterbacks in the 80s did. And that's why you look at the surface on his numbers and like, well, he threw a lot of interceptions and his completion percentage was just over 50%. But that was the norm. He was, and they went downfield with the ball a lot. So He is definitely somebody that is, I think, elite. Some folks don't. But Phil, I just lost my train of thought. What else were we talking about?
We were talking about Nick Sirianni because people think he's a clown and stuff like that, and we're just trying to cover the fact that winning is the most important thing. And when did we get away from that? It doesn't matter. And whenever somebody says a quarterback, well, they're great because they have elite wide receivers and running backs and defense, that just means you have a well-built team. You can't knock a quarterback. Are we knocking Joe Montana because he had Jerry Rice? Are we taking away those 50 touchdowns that Tom Brady threw to Randy Moss? You can't eliminate that. That's just great team management right there.
I would say for talking about Bradshaw, I mean, he had as much to do to get Stallworth and Swan in the Hall of Fame as they did themselves. I mean, right. He really. I mean, go back and look at the film and crunch the numbers and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Bradshaw is an elite quarterback, and I often get arguments on that. But yeah, Nick wins. The guy wins. I don't. What else you want from this guy?
I know.
You don't like how he wins? Great. You know what? I didn't like how Andy Reid won in Philadelphia. I don't like how he's winning right now in Kansas City. I'm putting it all on the line, and not to shift off to the Chiefs. I believe they lose in the divisional round at home. I don't care who the opponent is. I'm not looking at that team and saying, oh, that's a winning team.
Yeah.
I think that they are like one mistake away from just losing in the first round. Everybody's saying, well, they're going to win their third straight. No, they're not. They're not going to make it.
See, I don't want them to lose in the division because I do want the Eagles to get revenge from 2022. I want the Eagles to beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl very, very badly. And I want it to be with Saquon or with Jalen Hurts hoisting that MVP trophy. I want it so bad. I really, truly want that to be the scenario. But I agree with you. I mean, the rest can only help them so many times, to win a game.
Listen, if they're going to call penalties, listen, I don't advocate hurting people. I don't. But like, there's a sense of frustration and emotion. Like, I take a shot at Mahomes. I'm sorry, dude. If you're gonna call me for breathing on him anyway, I might as well make the hit count.
Yeah.
And he's got the high ankle sprain. Get Carson Wentz in there, see what happens.
Well, when he went down last week in a game, I said, wouldn't it be quite the story of Carson Wentz versus Jalen Hurts in the Super Bowl? That would be a story of all stories right there. But everybody always says that the Chiefs, and not to get off topic, because I want to get back to the Eagles here in a second. Everyone says the Chiefs get all these penalties. It's not. They actually don't. We've talked about how the Eagles' opponents are the least penalized opponents in the NFL. Well, the Chiefs are right there at the bottom as well. The Chiefs opponents actually get called for least amount of penalties. Like, I think they're like 28th or 29th in the NFL. It's just the moments that the penalties get called in are at big moments, and that's why we talk about it all the time. But over the course of the season, they don't get that many calls going against them like that.
They get the favorable calls when it counts.
Favorable moments.
Yeah. No, the Packers don't have a shot.
Yeah, I think the Packers are overhyped as well. All right, let's get back to the Eagles. Let's get back to Saquon, to the Cowboys game, and let's talk a little Saquon Barkley, because I haven't gotten your thoughts yet this year on Saquon Barkley. The Simpsons predicted the Eagles beating the Chiefs in a Super Bowl rematch. So, really? Well, then it definitely is happening then, because when do the Simpsons ever get anything wrong? Because they don't. Although they did get the presidential election wrong, because they did have Lisa Simpson as the first female president dressed exactly like Kamala Harris did on election night. But that's a topic for another day. Saquon Barkley is like 265 yards from breaking Eric Dickerson. I don't know if you saw it. Eric Dickerson put out a quote last night that he doesn't want Saquon Barkley to break it. And if he does break it, there'll be an asterisk because it's a 17-game season versus 16-game season. Just so you know, should the Eagles push Saquon Barkley to get this record? Because there's a lot more people on the side of wanting him to break it, even if it's pushing him a little too hard, than I realize, because I could care less about records. And I know Saquon Barkley doesn't care. So where do you stand on it, and how? I mean, you're an older guy. You've seen some pretty amazing running back seasons in your career. Where do you rank what Saquon Barkley's doing this year up there in the whole pantheon of running backs?
Well, first, I want to get to this comment that you're leaving up. I don't advocate, but yeah, true. Like, I don't advocate violence, but it's human nature. Like when things aren't going your way, you lose your cool, and like I would take a shot at him. I'm sorry, that's a.
I'm not advocating for it either. Just so you know,
that's a flaw of me as a human being. Yeah. Going back to the whole running back record thing. I don't care one way or the other. And I think Barkley doesn't care one way or the other. I'm concerned about the number of miles that he has on it, on him this year. Although he really hasn't shown any slowing down. I mean, he didn't have a great game against Washington, but he's still around for over 100 yards. I mean, there's so many different ways you can look at the record. Average yards per game, it's an extra game. Does that eclipse Dickerson? I honestly hate a 17 game moving on to an 18 game season. Yeah. I hate it. I think they should have just kept it to 16 and give them 2 bye weeks. Yep. So it's the same amount of games, but you stretch it over a longer time. You get that extra. You still get that extra ad revenue because you're televising essentially more weeks.
Well, there will be 2 bye weeks. Not if. When it gets to 18, when it gets to 18, there will be 2 bye weeks. That's the only way the players will agree to it.
Well, and here's the other thing too is like we've been talking about in this country union representation, and one of the weakest unions in this country is the NFL Players Association, and it's amazing like why they haven't. I know it's hey, you need to get every dollar you can for your union members, but this is a pretty dangerous occupation, and I would be banging the drum to limit a lot of different things here and maxing out as much as possible for your contingent. But I'm getting off on a tangent.
No, it's
here.
okay. I love this comment from Anthony because what was it? Jim Brown had the record before Eric Dickerson, right? And Jim Brown didn't complain about the 2 extra. OJ, I thought it was whoever it was did not complain about Dickerson needing 2 extra games to break the record. I did see somebody post this on Twitter the other day. So, yeah.
I mean, what if he obliterates the record and he has more yards per game?
Yeah. He's already averaging more yards per attempt according to Darker here. So I'm not fact checking that, but it's possible.
I think Eric Dickerson had like well over 400 attempts.
Yeah,
which is a lot.
Now, the other thing is people always make the argument Saquon needs the rushing record to get into the Hall of Fame because of where his career went with New York. I don't think it means anything. I really don't.
A running back needs 10,000 yards and probably a Super Bowl win. So, he's going to have 10,000 yards. Hopefully, he has a Super Bowl win, and he'll go in the Hall of Fame. And he would have played in 2 really big media markets. So, I mean, if you're thinking about your Hall of Fame candidacy, I'm not sure I want you on the team. I want you concentrated on the game at hand. DC 33 is a big joke. That's a weak union. I manage.
I don't even know what's DC 33.
District Council 33. That's a Philly union. My brother-in-law is in local 98, and it was strong until their guy went to jail. I managed a group of Teamster drivers, and I was very surprised on how weak that contract was that they agreed to, and how much control the company had over those folks. So I'm pro union. I was raised in a pro union household.
So was I. A very weak union household, but the CWA, Communication Workers of America, was horrendous in the 80s and early 90s. But we'll just leave that alone,
Yeah, I mean, not to get on national topics, but I love what the unions are trying to do to Starbucks and Amazon, and I hope they keep doing more about stuff like that. But I don't think Saquon cares about records either. And I think all year, he's just organically stockpiled all these yards. I don't think it's just happened. And it's not like, hey, we got to get him 150 yards again this week. It's just happening. He's just, these comments are unbelievable today, man.
This is a quiet light day, Mark. The comments aren't way too offensive or out of left field today. Wait till we get to more fun topics. You never know what they're going to say.
I like having a player who's just organically getting to these records, and not hey, we have to make sure that Barkley has his touches. No, he's getting his touches and he's making the best for it every time. It's not he's averaging 3 yards a carry and he's getting 40 carries a game. So yeah, dude, don't get me started on the billionaires and who's in politics. If one thing that
I'm shocked you're not in politics yet. I'll be honest, Mark. I'm shocked you're not the mayor of your town yet.
So we have one of our committeemen resigned and retired, and the committee needed to appoint someone, and my mayor reached. I'm not going to do it. But one of the guys that I do Little League with, who's on the board, stepped up, and he's now a committee person. So, again, off the tangent. And then just, if anything, with these past couple elections have really put a spotlight on is that the people don't run the country. And it's not even it's not even smoke and mirrors to make you think that they run the country. Your Jeff Bezos, your Elon Musks, your billionaires run the country, and your politicians are their puppets. You kind of knew it, but now it's all out in the open. Like we don't run it. And I don't know if we can ever take it back. And if we do take it back, I think it's going to be a little bit of a bloodbath for us to do it. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't like where the country is heading. And that's not a Republican or Democrat thing. It's just, it's not in a good place right now. And I don't think the last two presidential regimes and this current one are going to do anything to change stuff, which is a scary thing. So
yeah, let's get off politics.
That's really depressing.
We have a very strict politics conversation, on this show. But I just let you go off on your little politics rant. So, the great way to wrap up the year right there with politics talk on a sports talk show. Who do we think we are here? Let's get back to the Eagles, okay? You're an older man, so and I mean that with all due respect and all.
Keep pointing it out, but go ahead.
All due respect there, because I want to point that out specifically because you have more experience to answer this. Obviously, we're seeing not just a reinvention of the running back game here in Philadelphia this year, but we're seeing it at linebacker as well, with Zach Bond having this crazy great season. But I didn't get to talk about it yesterday. I saved it for today because you might actually remember him a little bit better than I did. Eagles legend Bill Bergey passed away on Christmas Day after losing his battle with cancer. Thoughts on Bill Bergey, but also then related to the fact that we're kind of reinventing the linebacker position here in Philadelphia this year.
My quick Bill Bergey story. We had a guy in the neighborhood that won a Bill Bergey lookalike contest, and I think in '80, and it was kind of a big deal in the neighborhood. We're done with politics.
Yeah, we're done. We're moving off. That was Mark getting off on a tangent there.
Yeah, geez, man. Yeah, there's off the politics. But going back to Bergey, yes, there was a guy in the neighborhood who won a Bill Bergey lookalike contest growing up. He was like a big teddy bear, but he was like off the field, but on the field, he was like ferocious. He was a mean person. Going back to when he played for Cincinnati, and when they traded for him in '74, they gave up a boatload of picks, and they really couldn't. When Vermeil came in '76, they couldn't build the team quick enough because all those picks were to Cincinnati, and it was really, really hard for them to get off the ground. That's why they had a 5-year plan, because they had no picks in '76 and '77, and then some things like were starting to come their way, he was like the glue on that defense. I mean, he was the play caller. And then after his career, like, he stayed around. I think he did some color commentary for some Eagles games. Yes, it was. That was the last game that he did play.
I didn't even know that.
His son, Jake Bergey, is one of the most accomplished lacrosse players in America. I think he played for Syracuse. And then he played for the Philadelphia Wings for the longest time, and he wore 66 in honor of his dad. If you talk to anybody who met him, I personally never met him, but I've heard stories. Just the nicest man that you wouldn't think he was a football player. But on the field, he was a mean dude that his knees were shot by the time the Super Bowl came. I think he missed the whole '79 season or maybe only played like 1 or 2 games. He blew his knee out at a time where you just couldn't. They don't have the stuff that they have today to reconstruct the knee. And it was, bubble gum, Scotch tape, and popsicle sticks holding his knee together. And he was the heart and soul of that defense. And he was really, a big heart and soul of that Dick Vermeil team. So it's very sad that he's gone.
Yeah, it's very sad. And I want to correct myself. I said he lost his battle. You never lose a battle with cancer. You know what I mean? It's something that I, hold close to my heart, but, I just kind of find it not ironic because they're totally different players, but him passing on this year, the first time we've had like real significant great linebacker play in the first time in, 20, 30 years. No offense to Nigel Bradham and the 2017 team. No offense to any of Andy Reid's teams, but this is the best linebacker we played maybe since Jeremiah Trotter Jr.'s first season, for first run in the Philadelphia Eagles, maybe since Willie Thomas in the mid-90s. Like, this is some of the best linebacker play we've seen in a long time this year. And I think because of Jalen Hurts and all the controversy and Saquon Barkley, I kind of sometimes feel, not on this show because we make sure we talk about him all the time, but in general, I think Philadelphia isn't giving the credit they deserve to Zach Bond in the season he's having, and Nakobe Dean as well. You know what I mean? Because Nakobe Dean's quietly having a fantastic season as well. And I truly believe he's not going to get it, but I truly believe Zach Bond should be in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, he's probably not going to get it, but he should be. Here's the deal with the linebackers. It's a forgotten position, just like the running back is a forgotten position. The running back's kind of making a little bit of a comeback, but like how they line up linebackers today, you only play two, and you play five defensive backs, either an extra safety or an extra or corner, because of the evolution of the passing game, and your linebackers need to cover. Your linebackers aren't like big, like clog the holes and things like that. They need to be agile, and Bond has been all over the field. He can cover a back out of the backfield. He can cover a tight end. But more importantly, he makes tackles. And Nakobe Dean, I had him on the roster bubble before training camp. Like I thought this was like, if he doesn't show anything, like this is it for him. And he is really taking a big step forward this year too. But again, I'm curious what they think what the linebacker position should continue to look like. Are they going to pour money into that position? Howie Roseman traditionally has never done that. He's probably going to have to do that for Dean. And he's going to do it for Bond if he feels like Trotter Jr. is the next coming. So I don't know. And
like, I love that you say that, because everybody's been saying since like week 7 or week 8 that you got to extend Zach Bond now. And every week passes, his price tag goes up, et cetera, et cetera. And I kind of feel like if he was part of the future plan, Howie would have already locked him up long term. And you're not talking about like $80, $90 million. I like to go back to Patrick Queen. He was a free agent this offseason. Everybody thought he was out of the price tag for the Eagles. And then he was going to get this huge, massive contract. And he didn't get a huge, massive contract. Considering what top linebackers get. Because like you said, the linebacker value is going down kind of like running backs. We're not talking about huge money. To keep Zach Bond, you're looking at like a 3-year, $28 million deal, somewhere in that neighborhood. That's not a significant amount of money.
Yeah, but
there's a lot of other holes and a lot of other guys that need to get paid, et cetera. And you drafted Trotter Jr. for this spot. Like, is there that scenario where they let Zach Bond go, just like they did T.J. Edwards a few years ago? Like,
probably.
It's hard to imagine, but it is a possibility.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he's not here next year, especially if they win a Super Bowl. All right, I won the Super Bowl. Let's go with the youth movement. Let's see if Trot Jr. is the guy and put up similar numbers. Listen, you drafted him, and you drafted him kind of on the higher side. Not
was he 4th round, I think.
Which is honestly for the Eagles is pretty high. They typically
absolutely.
They don't. They just don't focus in on the linebacker position, and haven't really since Andy Reid's tenure. And honestly, the league has moved away where you put your money in your line and your secondary, and you fill the gaps at linebacker. And I don't see that changing unless you now do like 60-40 run pass. I don't think there's any need for you to have those linebackers back there more than 2 on the field at a time. So,
I haven't heard this rumor that Duck's putting up here that Howie already put an offer on the table. See, the thing is, I keep bringing up, would it be smart for Zach Bond just to take a less than max offer to stay with Philly? Because obviously Zach Bond is succeeding in the Vic Fangio scheme. You know, like Vic Fangio is maximizing him. He might go elsewhere and instantly become a nobody again. Here in Philly under Vic Fangio, even if he takes a couple $1 million less, you know, he can thrive here, which in the big picture makes him more money.
Is there other defensive coordinators that have similar schemes than Fangio that has a bigger bank account?
Sean Desai was here, and we know, you know, and Jonathan Gannon, and who else, you know, all the clones of Vic Fangio, but you got the creator of the defense, so maximizing him. So this is also the best spot for him to stay.
I mean, I think Vic Fangio has done a phenomenal job this season.
Absolutely.
If they trust Vic and Vic is going to be here as that coordinator, like Spagnuolo is in Kansas City, which I think that's what it's going to be. If Vic says I need the guy, they should sign him. Yeah. You know, I love Milton Williams. Yeah. I don't think he's coming back either because you have Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter that you have to take care of.
Milton Williams is going to get a massive contract this offseason from somebody. Now, I agree with K1 that if I had X amount of money and I can only bring back one or the other, you probably bring back Milton Williams. But, you know, they got about $32 million in cap space right now, not counting any readjustments to the salary, you know, contracts or anything like that, or renegotiations and how he's good at. Like, you got draft picks to sign. You got Milton Williams. You've got Jordan Davis, I think, is up for a rookie extension after this season. You got Zach Bond. You got Darius Slay. You've got a lot of guys that need some who else? They're one of the you got Mekhi Becton that you got to consider keeping. You know, there's a lot of money to be spent. Milton Williams is going to get 60, 70, 80 million dollars somewhere. He's probably gone. It's unfortunate.
Slay's up. Slay's not coming back.
Slay's not coming back. No, he's the second oldest starting cornerback in the NFL. Darius Slay's had a great season. I don't think people realize how great he's played this year as well. At least compared to last year. We also need to lock up Kenny Gainwell. K1 is Kenny Gainwell's burner account. That's Kenny Gainwell saying that basically. So
I like Kenny Gainwell.
Yeah, hey, and Gannon gonna get fired at the end of the season? Cards have not improved at all. No, Gannon's good in Arizona.
I think the Cardinals had a major drop off, not from season to season, but within season. I think he would get another year. I think they like him out there.
I actually don't have a problem with what Duck's saying. If Zach Bond wants to use his one good year to secure a big bank for his family and the future of his family, that's his right as a football player to do that. And I will, even if he becomes a nobody after 1 year, I would respect the hell out of Zach Bond of making sure he secures his family's future, financial future for the next generation or two. I kind of feel like someone like Zach Bond has to at least consider that.
Zach Bond is the Jeff Hoffman of the Philadelphia Eagles, I think.
Absolutely fair comment right there.
I just hope he doesn't fall off like Jeff Hoffman did towards the end of the year. I mean, he shows no signs of doing that, but
well, I mean, he did get beat on the game-winning touchdown last week, Zach Bond. So, you know,
but again, what do you want him to do? Like the guy has had an All-Pro year.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just saying. All right, I saw some late commenters coming in. Let's get to some final predictions. We still got about 30 minutes left in the show, guys. Trending in the AM right here on the STT Sports Network. Please, if you haven't already done it, hit the like button and the subscribe button. Share it out for those that have done that. I'd greatly appreciate it. Todd, I've seen you ask a couple times about Kenny Pickett and Tanner McKee. We did talk about it early in the show. We did kick off with that. But Mark and I are both in agreement that Kenny Pickett is the right choice to start the game. And I believe Mark and I are both in agreement of big, easy, dominating wins for the Philadelphia Eagles. Mark, what did you say your prediction was?
I think they get out to an early start and probably similar to what they did against Washington. I see the Eagles winning 31-6. I see late in the third that all the starters are going to be pulled. And I just think it's going to be a cakewalk. I don't think Dallas is invested in this game. And I do think the Eagles are coming to play because they do want, quote unquote, like quasi bye against the Giants. I think I look for a big win. It's going to be a 1:00 game. I think it's supposed to pour.
It is supposed to rain a lot. I know I got a 2 hour plus drive to northern Jersey for the cruise, so I know I got to make a 2 hour drive in the pouring rain up the turnpike. So I'm really looking forward to that Sunday morning.
So I think that bodes well for us because if you're going to run a little bit more, I mean, we got the best running back in the league. So I just think it's going. I think it's going to be. I hate saying it's going to be a cakewalk or an easy game. I just think it is. I don't. The way the Dallas Cowboy organization is constructed and has been constructed for a long time, from ownership all the way down to the Cowboy, is that there's no life in it, and it's all. There's no organization. It's all about Jerry Jones and nothing about anybody else. Nobody cares. The team does not create cohesiveness, and it's not a real team unless they're winning. And right now, they're not winning. So I would put the mortgage payment on the Eagles money line because that's I don't even know what was the spread, 8?
I look it up. It was 8.5. Then it moved to 9. Give me a second. I'll pull up it at the current moment. I will say though that I do think they cover whatever it is. It's actually dropped from it was 7.5, then it went to 8.5, 9. Now it's down to 7. That's probably because of the news that Kenny Pickett is the most likely the quarterback for the Eagles. The money line is minus 340. So you got to lay $340 to win 100. So the Eagles are winning the game. Now you did bring up the weather. I don't foresee it being as high scoring of a game. I'm leaning towards 24-9, a little bit lower scoring because they're going to dominate the time of possession. They're going to win, on the ground. Dallas can't run the football. They're the 28th ranked run offense in football. They don't even average 95 yards a game, the Dallas Cowboys, on the ground. So I don't see them being able to score without CeeDee Lamb, without Dak, without anybody. So I'm going 24-9 on the game.
I mean, that's about right.
Yeah.
Listen, the Cowboys are 7-8. But they
have won 4 of their last 5 games. They have beaten Washington and the Bucks recently. So, I'll throw them that. They have played a little bit better.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up what the stats were the last time these guys played together.
I had it up, but then you made me look up the line. So, they ran the ball over 180 yards, the Eagles, but Saquon only had like 60-some yards in the game. Jalen Hurts had 2 touchdown passes. He had a rushing touchdown in that game. It was 34-6, I believe, was the final score of that game.
34-6. All right, here's their passing stats: 17-29. This can't be right. 49 yards they threw for a total.
The Cowboys, they did. They remember they had a bench Cooper Rush for Trey Lance in that game. It was
Cooper
such a blowout.
Was 13-23 for 45 yards.
Yeah,
they ran for 97 yards. They were really bad. They threw a total of net 49 yards, dude. It's the same offense, and you're taking away CeeDee Lamb, and it's just I don't
talk about stacking the box against the Eagles last week. The Eagles can do that against the Cowboys because they don't even need to stack the box against the Cowboys because Rico Dowd or whatever his name is not that good of a running back. So
no, he could put up a 100-yard game, but he's really their only weapon. And I would just watch their tight ends underneath there because we've been burned by their tight ends before. So I would just keep an eye out on them. I think your defensive focus is put pressure on Cooper Rush and make sure that you guys got guys in the box against Rico. I have him on my fantasy team, and my fantasy team sucks, by the way. But I only won 2 games this year. But he's run for 903 yards and has almost a 5-yard rushing average, 4.8 yards per carry. He only has 1 TD. He has 36 receptions. He's a guy I think you need to watch. Rick, we love the Kelly Green. We don't get rid of it.
Rick's my man. I'm just leaving this up on the screen for the rest of the show.
Yeah.
Just because Rick knows. Rick's got Mark, if you don't know Rick, you got to find Rick online. He's got a fantastic birds and beer podcast. He's a fantastic dude. My new go-to show for some fun beer and birds talk right there. I'll send you a link to it after the show.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's good stuff. There is some bad football games this week. No, Saquon will not get the record. It's not important. It's not necessary. Kelly Green haters. Well, until I see Duck say something nice about Nick Sirianni, I will continue to hate on Kelly Green. And I know he'll never do that, so I'll never stop hating on Kelly Green. So Kenny Pickett is going to play quarterback in pouring rain with the smallest hands in the league. Sounds like a recipe for disaster. That's actually not as funny of a comment as you think it is. That actually is something right there. You know what? Let's make a joke. I want to get something very serious here in a moment with Mark. But can we talk about Kenny Two Gloves? Does it annoy you that Kenny Pickett wears two gloves on his hands when he plays? Like, has there ever been a good quarterback or an even okay quarterback that's rocked the two glove look? Because it's awful. And it looks weird and so uncomfortable.
They would lose touch to the ball. Yeah. And there are no rules against you can't wear gloves and be a quarterback. I guess not. I mean,
I don't know. I don't understand it. It just looks weird, the Kenny Two Gloves. It really does.
Hey, if it works for him and it provides security on the ball, Kelly Green is what the team was built on.
Yeah, team of losing.
Their primary color from 33 all the way up to
how many
95.
Super Bowls did they win in Kelly Green? I'm just curious.
They won 3 NFL championships and went to
even you're not that old to remember those games, though.
But I mean, it was what you're missing is the primary color for 2/3 of their existence, and you're just going to scrap it. If you want to talk about bad juju, is the white helmets in the 70s. Yeah. That was really bad. That was some of the worst NFL football ever played in this city when they wore the white helmets. And I never want to see the white helmets. I feel about the white helmets that a lot of people feel about the Kelly Green.
Let me say this about the Kelly Green. The problem with the Kelly Green isn't the winning and the losing. It's that they associate it with the wrong era. Most people right now get excited about the Kelly Green because they're thinking about Reggie White, Clyde Simmons, Randall Cunningham. And no offense, that was one of the most disappointing eras in Eagles history because they had the talent on that team. They had a terrible coach that couldn't win the big game, and they had a terrible organization that wouldn't build around Randall Cunningham. So the problem is what they relate Kelly Green to. They should relate it to what you're talking about, the 60s and the early times when they were winning NFL championships, but they relate it to the wrong era. And that's why I hate it so much.
I would tell you, if you want to really get crazy, go back to the mid-70s to early 80s Eagles jersey that they wore in the 80 Super Bowl. That's not really like a Kelly Green. It's a little bit darker. It's more like towards like an olivish green. And I will tell you, the midnight green, when it came out, was the style in the 90s, darker colors, a 90s style helmet. But let's be real, their uniforms right now haven't changed for almost 30 years. They're really dated, and changing the word print,
the watermark of the word. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you should take the best of both uniforms and combine it into a new uniform.
Hey, you can't knock the Rodney MVP season. That was like our first playoff win in like a million years under Rodney MVP. And Rodney MVP also had a hell of a wife right there. He definitely married up in his life. Holly Robinson
her on Twitter. She's very appeasing to the eye.
Yeah, she is. All right, so I want to end this show. We still got about 20 minutes, guys. Don't worry, bonus time coming. With something more serious. It's the holidays. There's a lot of people struggling out there, mentally and physically. And Mark, you had the privilege of going to an event like 2 weeks ago. Lane Johnson and Rob Motti. And I'd like you to just talk about that a little bit. What was the event called again?
So it's
Paving
called
the Lane, or
so it was. Lane Johnson held I guess a seminar, symposium, whatever you want, at Clearview Regional High School in Mullica Hill. Mm-hmm. They had 2 sessions. They had one for the students, and then they had one for the public at night. I went to the one in the public. My son attended the one during the day, and it really talked about like mental health and like it's okay not to feel okay was like the prevalent theme. So during the afternoon session, if you remember Marcus Smith, who was a draft pick of the Philadelphia Eagles, and Rob Motti held a Q&A and a symposium, just because these kids today like feel that I don't know what they feel, man. Like I'm going to tell you my story quick. My daughter had a boyfriend. The boyfriend unexpectedly took his life, and it was out of nowhere. And I don't even know if signs were missed, but we don't know what the internal suffering is of your coworker, your neighbor, your friend, your spouse, because those that are suffering the most hide it the best from the people that they love the most, and they think like well, I don't want to burden that person with my problems, and if I wasn't here, it would solve a lot of problems. It really doesn't. If anything, it just creates a lingering problem for the people that person leaves behind. So we're really hurt here in our household right now, but we're coping. And they had this event at Clearview, Pave the Lane, with Rob Motti, who's an AP writer who's from the area. We actually went to high school together in Philadelphia, and he told his story on how he became a writer and how he got caught up in the hanging out with, sports people and celebrities. And he went down the wrong path with infidelity and alcohol, and realized he was hurting. And he found God, but he also found therapy as well. And it's made him a better person. Lane came out, and I think Lane's documentation of his mental health is very well documented. He talked a little bit about the episode that he had where he drove back to Oklahoma and Big Dom had to go and get him and bring him back. And Lane suffers from anxiety, and he was up on stage and he talked about every day he starts his day puking, throwing up, nervous, anxious. And what he said in his locker room, his people, his teammates are completely supportive. They have a staff psychologist that you can speak to there. Like what they were trying to do is break the stigma of mental health. And the prevailing theme was it's okay not to be okay. And they had a lot of different things that were there. They had different desks of different organizations that you can join or get help with. And somebody mentioned on there, like back in the day, you were told to suck it up, but now we're normalizing more like it's okay to go to therapy. It's okay not to feel okay. It's okay that you need help. You can ask for help. And the last thing you want to do is make a finite decision that could be affecting others that love and care for you. And I don't fault people that do that. I just wish they would come out and ask for the help, because it's more available now and it's more normalized now than it ever has. If you have a 6'5", 330-pound human being standing in front of several hundred people in a high school auditorium saying that I have to start my day by throwing up in the toilet because I'm so damn anxious, then that's normal. Then you know what I'm feeling is probably pretty normal, and I could probably go get help. And you have a big football player that feels this way and is getting help, and he's getting support from the people that are his coworkers and teammates and who love him. That puts that person in a great position. So anybody out there who's not feeling right and thinks it's time to make that finite decision, pump the brakes, talk to somebody, reach out. Nobody's going.
And we are in the holiday season, and it kind of amplifies these problems to an extent, right? And you mentioned the Eagles have a staff psychologist on, and look, there's I see Duck's comment here about growing up therapy was a weakness, and I get that. I was in that same boat, Duck. But, imagine being a 6'5" guy or, a famous celebrity or a famous athlete. And, I constantly talk on this show where I kind of feel like athletes, it should almost be like a requirement that they have to see a staff psychologist, or somebody on a regular basis, because we deal with our problems every day, but they deal with it in the spotlight, which makes it more likely that they're hiding things even more than a regular person is, because, it is considered it might not be considered a weakness to me and you anymore, but to Lane Johnson, it might still be considered a weakness. You know what I mean? I go back to, do you remember, what was his name? He was the lineman for the Miami Dolphins. That he was getting bullied, and he ended up leaving the league for a while. And he called it, I can't remember his name. All I remember is I called him because Mike Moscatelli was bashing him so bad on the radio that day. That was the day Mike Moscatelli blocked me, and I've never spoken to him since, because I called to kind of speak up for the guy. Like, these players in that spotlight, it's even a bigger weakness to them because, they're supposed to be these tough guys. You know what I mean? And, you even saw Joel Embiid kind of sort of dabble in mentioning the depression he's been facing over the last year or so. And why would he be depressed? I mean, he's got $100 million. He's got a good-looking wife. He's got a great kid. You know what I mean? But everybody faces this on a daily basis, and even more so now than any other time.
Yeah, we fail to recognize that these people are, they're people. They have the same problems.
Absolutely.
And we often say that, oh, he's got millions of dollars. What kind of problems do you have?
Yeah.
Money cannot buy you happiness.
Right.
What did I say? More money, more problems, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just,
100%.
money, a beautiful wife, a great occupation, being in the spotlight doesn't solve
anything.
your
It makes it
problem.
hard. It makes it harder to an extent.
It does. And there's certain expectations that, I'm sure, and Lane didn't mention any of this, but like, I'm sure like people come to him and ask for money or ask for this, or I need tickets for that. And then you start to look inward and say, well, what am I really to that person? Am I their friend or their family, or am I just like an ATM machine for them? And he didn't mention any of that, but I'm just saying, like, these people have stresses as well. Jonathan Martin is the name.
I was thinking Joe Martin, but I didn't want to say the
Zach
wrong
Martin, and I knew that.
Yeah, I knew there was a Martin in there, and then Richie Incognito was the guy that got suspended for leading the bully campaign. Now that you said Jonathan Martin, I remember Richie Incognito's name. And I just remember Mike Moscatelli on his show saying, "How can a guy that's 6'5", 350 pounds, be bullied or depressed? He should just be able to smash anybody in his path." Well, that doesn't solve the problem on what's causing these problems. You know what I mean? And I don't think you would see that kind of bullying a depressed person now in this current era in the locker room. But I don't know. I mean, the way fans treat athletes on social media also amplify their problems to an extent as well. And that's why, like, because of the social media aspect, I really truly believe every team should make it a requirement for these people to speak to somebody on a regular basis, weekly, monthly. Just to, hey, what's up? How you feeling? Is there anything we could do to help you? Like, this should be a bigger deal. Like, I know personally on a like us normal people level, we've got problems, but I think it's something that doesn't get discussed enough on the celebrity side of things.
When you have, and this is why I love sports. It's a great unifier.
Yeah.
A lot of people can relate. And when you had Lane Johnson on a stage saying that I have a mental fog, I have mental illness, I have problems that I have to talk to somebody about. That tells you, well, if he's got it and he's got the world by the balls, at least on the outside, then, maybe I can go help myself. And there's so many different programs, again, in the county that I live in. Even the company that I work for, we have 16 teletherapy sessions a year for free that I just need to talk to somebody. I just got to hit a button and I could talk to that person. And sometimes maybe you don't want to talk to your spouse, or you don't want to talk to your best friend. You want to talk to a professional. I mean, it's okay to do that. It really is okay. It's also okay to talk to your spouse and your significant other and your children or your mom and dad. I mean, it's always okay to do that. And the people that push you away, I think you don't have to look inward and say, well, that's me. You may want to rethink the relationship with that person. And again, with tragedy and whatnot that I faced in my family, or at least extended out because of the fact of my daughter, I understood who my tribe is, who my core is, because they were out in full force to help. And it validated a couple things. One, it validated my daughter's boyfriend made a difference in his short time on earth, which made hopefully his family at least feel good there. But also, like, it validated that the people that I'm counting on were there for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that made me feel good that I could pick up a phone and call a certain somebody and they would be there for me. So traumatic brain injury is so, and really, like, it's really bad. Like, your brain, if it's not right, then everything else is not going to be right. And whether it is through football or an accident, you need to take care of your brain. And if it means that you need to talk to somebody, then you talk to somebody. If you have to take medication, take medication. But don't ignore it, and don't, quote unquote, man up. You got to man up. Like, I remember I've been guilty of saying that too, as being a youth coach. Man up, rub some dirt on it. Like,
well, I was told that many a times growing up, and I don't know if you can tell. I'm very I'm trying to bring light to this, but I'm very uncomfortable in this situation here because I do struggle with these things, and I was constantly told as a kid, man up, toughen up. What are you going to do? And times are different now than in the 80s and stuff like that. But I feel very uncomfortable in this situation. But I think it's important that people realize, and like you, I know who my tribe is now. I know who I can talk to. You know what I mean? But people. I think not enough people, zone in. And Lane Johnson, I just don't think gets the credit he deserves for bringing mental health awareness front and center in football. Because, again, out of all sports and celebrities, the toughest sport there is football. And when someone like Lane Johnson is trying to make an effort to bring this to the forefront, I don't think he gets the credit he deserves.
He's atypical of what you would think of somebody who has mental health issues. The guy's from Oklahoma. I mean, he was like raised in on a farm, and he talked about his career ascension and how he struggled to be on teams and stay on teams and be accepted. But you would think, like, some redneck from Oklahoma, this doesn't affect him, but yeah, it does. It affects everybody, and I think the more people are open to their feelings and how they feel, I think the better off we can be as a society. And I again, not to get back into politics, but there's a lot of negativity in politics on both sides, is that we should be doing the complete opposite. We're not bringing people together. We're further dividing. And this is part of it. Like, if you don't feel like, if you have some mental health issues and you don't feel like you're part of the clan or part of the clique, and you're further ostracized, like that doesn't bode well. So it's Doc, like, it took a lot of balls for
like, I just think about you. I want to expand on you talking about a kid from Oklahoma, football and family. Like, I mean, what else is Lane Johnson known for? His big gym in his house where guys come and work out and sweat and act all macho and machismo all the time. Like, this is not something someone in that situation normally is open about. And I think, again, that's just more power to him, because, when I hear somebody like Lane Johnson talking about it, makes me feel a little bit better. You know what I mean? So even if I don't talk about it a lot, Lane Johnson deserves the respect and recognition for the way he discusses it so openly.
Yeah, he's a great dude. He's a huge dude too. Like, I saw him after I went backstage, and I couldn't get up to him to take a picture or talk to him, but all the kids that had there was like a couple, like there was basketball practice and band practice. So there was a bunch of kids from the school, and they ran out to go see him. One of the kids I coached basketball took a selfie with him, and the kid, for a freshman, is pretty tall, and he's on the freshman basketball team. He looked like an ant next to Lane Johnson. Sure. Just a huge, huge individual. And again, you equate somebody big, tough, muscles, testosterone. Yeah. But he's a regular person, man. Like, and that's what we fail to realize when we look at when we look at our celebrities, when we look at our role models, when we look at our athletes and things like that. They're people too. And really internally, when you look at like your moms or your dads or your guardians or the people that you look up to, you think that they're invincible, but really they're not. And the more that you can provide help to each other, I think the better off we as a society can be. And to break down that stigma of, mental health is, it is, somebody mentioned that it's a disability, and really is. Like, your brain can affect so many different things. Like I was feeling a little melancholy, a little down this holiday. I lost my appetite. I wasn't eating, and that's not good for me. No. I was hungry. I just wasn't eating, and it's just like I got to snap out of this. And I went to that seminar, and it helped. And just seeing and engaging with my children and talking and just having fun, trying to have fun. Was really helped. And again, like I said, your tribe, reach out to the people that you know and love and trust, and they'll be there for you. Trust me on that.
Yeah, I agree. All right, guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn the page. We're going to wrap this show up here. Mark, I greatly appreciate you bringing light to this and talking about your story a little bit.
No problem.
'Cause again, like I said, I know a lot of people struggle during this time of the year. 1,000,000%. Because the holidays do amplify this. They amplify the loss. They amplify the stress, the anxiety. But this is the end of 2024 for this show. We'll be back in 2025. So I want to thank everybody and remind everybody, each and every one of you that tune in every single day, as we call you, the Core 12, you guys get me through a lot of my problems. I don't do this show for the money. I do this show for the therapy to an extent. You guys help me forget my problems on a daily basis. So I want to thank each and every one of you. Next week, I will be on a big giant boat, having a lot of fun, spending quality time with the family. There won't be any live shows. I will try to post some videos and some thoughts on different things throughout the week from the boat. Just not sure what the Wi-Fi is going to be like. That's why we're just kind of playing next week by ear. But I want to thank each and every one of you for what's been an up and down 2024. Started at one network, got moved to another network. That network went out of business. So here we are doing it on our own. So it's been an interesting professional 2024 for me. But I want to thank each and every one of you for following along and being here for me every single morning. And Mark, we just end every show very simply here. We say go Birds, and we say bubbles up. Happy New Year, everybody.
Go Birds, bubbles up.
Pop, 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 julep. Pop, 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 julep. Pop, 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 pop,